Welcome, friends. Today's talk is on the power of true clairvoyance. Next Sunday, there will be a presentation on cycles. Washington, D.C. area students of the Wisdom of the Ages that H.P. Blavatsky and William Q. Judge brought to us from the records of the Masters of Wisdom meet here in Suite 230, 4865A Cordero Avenue, Bethesda, Maryland, on Sundays at 11 a.m. to share their studies and life's experiences in assimilating the unadulterated teachings as they were left to us. Every first and third Sunday, we continue at 12:30 p.m. with roundtable readings and discussions of selected writings. Next Sunday afternoon, we will continue with reading and discussing the Bhagavad Gita and related notes. Making Theosophy a living power in our lives is an eternal initiative that is critical for the development of humanity's efforts to become the better able to help and teach others. We have three objects which are in our program here, and they are to form the nucleus of a universal brotherhood of humanity without distinction of race, creed, sex, caste, or color. 2, the study of ancient and modern religions, philosophies, and sciences, and the demonstration of the importance of such study. And 3, the investigation of the unexplained laws of nature and the psychical powers latent in man. We follow the declaration of the United Lodge of Theosophists, which is the policy of this lodge is independent devotion to the cause of Theosophy without professing attachment to any theosophical organization. It is loyal to the great founders of the Theosophical movement, but does not concern itself with dissensions or differences of individual opinion. The work it has on hand and the end it keeps in view are too absorbing and too lofty to leave it the time or inclination to take part in side issues. That work and that end is the dissemination of the fundamental principles of the philosophy of Theosophy and the exemplification and practice of those principles through a truer realization of the self, a profounder conviction of universal brotherhood. It holds that the unassailable basis for union among Theosophists, wherever and however situated, is similarity of aim, purpose, and teaching. It has neither bylaws nor officers, the sole bond between its associates being that basis, and it aims to disseminate this in the furtherance of unity. It welcomes to its association all who are in accord with the declared purposes and who desire to fit themselves by study and otherwise to be the better able to help and teach others. The true Theosophist belongs to no cult or sect, yet belongs to each and all. We're going to have a reading now from the Voice of the Silence, followed by the talk on power of true clairvoyance.
The light from the One Master, the one unfading golden light of the Spirit,
shoots its effulgent beams on the disciple from the very first. Its rays thread through the thick, dark clouds of matter. Now here, now there, these rays illumine it like sun sparks light the earth through the thick foliage of the jungle growth. But, O disciple, unless the flesh is passive, head cool, the soul as firm and pure as flaming diamond, the radiance will not reach the chamber, its sunlight will not warm the heart, nor will the mystic sound of the Akasic heights reach the ear, however eager, at the initial stage. Unless thou hearst, thou canst not see. Unless thou seest, thou canst not hear. To hear and see, this is the second stage. When the disciple sees and hears, and when he smells and tastes, eyes closed, ears shut, with mouth and nostrils stopped, when the four senses blend and ready are to pass into the fifth, that of the inner touch, then into stage the fourth he hath passed on. And in the fifth, O slayer of thy thoughts, all these again have to be killed beyond reanimation.
Welcome, friends. I think we should start this talk by reading the definition given in the glossary for Theosophy. Clairvoyance, the faculty of seeing with the inner eye or a spiritual sight. As now used, it is a loose and flippant term, embracing under its meaning a happy guess due to natural shrewdness or intuition, and also that faculty which was so remarkably exercised by Jacobama and Swedenborg. Real clairvoyance means the faculty of seeing through the densest matter, the latter disappearing at the will and before the spiritual eye of the seer, and irrespective of time, past, present, and future, or distance. So it has different connotations if you read it from here versus the dictionary, because they make it a superhuman power in the dictionary. So when we look at the theosophical teachings, we find that all of the wisdom of the ages seeks to cultivate the normal in nature and man, and stimulate the natural development of the powers inherent in man, and produce normal human beings in every walk of life. However, normal growth and development is always slow and unspectacular. But in this age, in the 21st century, we're not satisfied with the slow and orderly processes of nature. We believe rather in the fast methods instituted by modern civilization in forcing, pushing, cramming. In doing everything in our power, in fact, to obtain quick results through this process. And thus it is that in every department of life we find abnormality is the rule. It's not normality, it's abnormality. So, abnormality. So, when we hear the word clairvoyance, what are we looking for? Are we looking for a normal person or an abnormal person? And in the regular understanding of that terminology, we're actually looking for an abnormal person, a medium perhaps, or somebody that is partly unbalanced because of this forcefulness that we want to bring about results with. However, if all humanity, in other words, all human beings, were not clairvoyant to some degree, we would not be able to communicate with one another. And we have to think about that. Clairvoyance, then, in this sense, from the description we just read, is concerned with knowledge, wisdom, and clear seeing. That's the definition of the word, is clear seeing. And we just read the definition, is clear seeing. It does not connote visions on the invisible plane that we're supposed to see without having no knowledge as to what it really means. That actually is abnormal development, which is involving the psychic nature of man, and it is not a spiritual, it is actually unspiritual, and it is very dangerous. We're warned time and time again not to try to cultivate our psychic powers, because those come as a natural outcome of our inner nature development. In other words, our gifts are those that come from service to humanity. So according to the wisdom, to see a principle at work on the visible plane is far more spiritual than to see a vision on the invisible plane, because seeing a principle at work is noetic. It implies understanding, while the vision on the invisible plane is psychic and material, regardless of how sublimated that matter is. So the man who sees principles is dealing with spirit. The beholder of psychic visions is simply dealing with substance, which is sublimated. So principles. Visions. Principle versus vision. So what are we talking about here? How do we see a principle at work, for instance? Well, the secret doctrine has three of them, three fundamental principles it is based on, and we are told if we don't understand those three principles, there's absolutely no need for us to read the book, because the whole concept of the philosophy is based on those three principles. But what are they? The first one is deity, that a spiritual force, essence, or a spiritual energy, however we want to define it, whatever word we want to give it, is everywhere. It's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It's not particular to something and not something else, because the universe as a whole has it in it. It's everywhere. What's the second principle? Cycles. Well, it's very obvious that there is an ebb and flow in nature. We can see it in the sea, the shoreline, going in, coming out, going in, coming out, day and night, life and death. This is natural to all humanity as well as all of the kingdoms of lower kingdoms. What's the third one? Consciousness. The secret doctrine does not define things as animate and inanimate, because everything has consciousness in it. Even the stone has it. It's just dormant. It's not active yet. But nevertheless, when you think about it, the stones have to have energy in them because they crumble. How else would it crumble? It has that positive, negative energy in it, and under pressure it crumbles. And through age it crumbles too. So we have to think about these things because it's important to understand them. So when we see a principle, okay, the humanity, when you look at each human being, we see that we're all different. We're made up of good and bad. We're all mixed. But in some, the goodness is in the ascendancy, because you can see that the person is charitable. They help others. they go out of their way. Well, what principle is at work there? Charity is at work, obviously. So all of the opposites are visible on this plane, so we can see it, that it is happening. And in the Secret Doctrine, actually, on page 251, Blavatsky tells us that this faculty is going to belong to humanity at a future date. And she explains it this way: as the faculties of humanity are multiplied, so will the characteristics of matter be multiplied. Matter has extension, color, motion, molecular motion, taste, and smell, corresponding to the existing senses of men, and by the time that it fully develops the next characteristic, let us call it permeability, this will correspond to the next sense of man, and let us call it normal clairvoyance. This is in the Secret Doctrine. But it has implications, because in Theosophy, evolution starts at the top, not from the bottom up. It's from the top down. So she's telling us that this is going to be our capability in the future. So how are we going to notice it? Then she explains that before gross matter becomes permeable, man must have developed in himself the power to see through it. This can only be done by learning first to see through false ideas, personal opinions, propaganda, and the like. So, false ideas, personal opinions. So, are these very obvious when we look at them? Or people can get up and talk about their own ideas, and our society is actually based on propaganda, because this is our democratic system, because each party then can tell us what they think we should know. But does that make it real or truth? What about personal opinions? We all have them, but what is it based on? What's the root that we base these personal opinions on? Is it real, or is that just based on phenomena, which is not the truth, but simply a reflection of the truth? So then it is important to look at these and see if it is real or not. So then the clear seeing we're talking about here applies to all facets of our life. What they're asking us is to use our own discrimination in figuring out whether it is real or if it is not real. We cannot just believe what people tell us, because actually Theosophy says don't believe anything anybody tells you. The theosophical ideas are in the world all the time, but it just comes out in a different expression in different ages, but no one is ever asked to believe anything. She says when its reasonableness becomes clear to you, then you can accept it or reject it. It's up to you what you want to do with it. So what do we do with this? Everyday clairvoyance then is inherent in us, is it not? Because it's really based on common sense, and Theosophy is sanctified common sense. So we have to use our own common sense. And on this plane, on the physical plane, what is available to us? Opposites. On this plane, opposites are available to us. Why is that important? Because comparison is possible. On the physical plane, we can compare things and make a decision for ourselves, accept it or not accept it. So it is important because in that article it says we have to be able to distinguish clearly between genuine and pseudo occultists, between white and black magic, because both of them exist. And there are organizations that say that they are theosophical, and they get up and give a version of it. Is it the real stuff or is it not the real stuff? Who is giving it? Where are they getting it from? Where is the root coming from? Is it the master's program or is it pseudo masters, where they take the information, change it, and then sell it to the public? In this, one cannot sell it. Why? Because it's a gift. When you have a gift, you then give the gift free of charge. Because if you don't, what happens to it? It becomes psychic energy. It loses its spirituality. So we need to be very careful as to what people are telling us and what it is that they are trying to sell. And we are warned that there are priests of all religions, spurious initiates in the theosophical world, and they use priestcrafts as well. So in order to distinguish between magic, white magic and black, irrespective of whatever it is that they're employing, because they have to go to the scriptures to tell us what they think is real, we need to understand the root of the magical sciences and arts. So contrast and comparison is important. Genuine clairvoyance on the astral, psychical, and other intermediate zones of consciousness do not provide this contrast. Once our inner eye is open, when we look at things, there's no contrast. It's just that you're looking at. Here we have the contrast. There we don't have it. So there is no contrast, and there are no oppositional currents. No contrast. No oppositional currents. What are the oppositional currents on this field operation of ours? Well, we have positive and negative, right? We know that two similar things oppose one another, opposite attract. All our chemical formulas are based on that one principle. What about the oppositional currents in us? We have it too. We're positive and negative. Lightning can strike and kill us. It shows you that we're electricity. What other? There is force inside out, force outside in, so that is contrast. There are oppositional currents both in the universe and in us. But in these intermediate worlds, there are none of these. So we can be fooled very easily as to what we are looking at and what we are seeing. So then our waking human consciousness is unbalanced because of the opposing and contrasted forces. But in these worlds, unbalanced because non-interfering forces. So all our levels of consciousness represent a pair of opposite in every sense possible. So if we are progressing in one direction, what is its opposite doing? Retrogression, going backwards. Because in human nature we cannot stand still. We are either progressing or we're going backwards. retrogression is the word. Reformation in one direction means disintegration in the opposite pole. Thus, each and every state of consciousness, we are told, in the world of matter has both antenatal and post-mortem states in it, as well as the consciousness of those beings who are centered in it. So, if we're on the physical plane and our consciousness is concentrated here, the prenatal and postmortem are here too. They're not separate. We never look at things in a complete way. So what is that telling us? That these three states exist side by side at all times. Who thinks about them and who makes their decisions according to those three states? I don't think many people are even aware that it exists. So then, this triple-faceted nature, it is stated, especially for theosophical students, need to be studied, each one for himself, and see what kind of common sense application we can make of it. So then, this possibility of contrast, no contrast, genuine, not genuine, plays a tremendous role in our lives, because even though if we use our common sense, we could come to the true understanding of what is presented, and whether it is false or not, we would know it. We don't use our common sense. We accept things at face value when it is presented to us. So, we take the form for reality, claim for truth, and appearance presented as morally genuine. A lot of people do this all the time. And so it says here that since we don't use this common sense approach to life, we're deceived in all three aspects of our life, and we lose a tremendous amount as a result of it. What is it that we lose? Our trust in justice, in our fellows, and in ourselves. We become sophisticated along this road because they experience and experiment, but we never become wise. And it says that if we have been despoiled of our belongings, money, name, we are in such a state of attitude that many of the left-hand path adepts are recruited among those students. Because when we feel that some injustice has come to us, we don't accept responsibility for it. We think someone else is doing it to us. So this is a very dangerous situation which should not really exist. And the person says, oh, this is my bad karma. But on this plane, maybe that is true. But on the other intermediate planes, it becomes his or her bad discrimination. Because there is no contrast and comparison in those fields, it is very difficult to perceive what is real and what isn't. Plus, what is it that we are told? That those worlds are upside down. That we look at things in the invisible world, which is the astral clairvoyant field, upside down. And depending where our own consciousness is and how many levels of that consciousness we have perceived as real, in other words, which level is open. There are 7. They're all color coordinated. I couldn't tell you what the colors stand for, but it does have something to do with it, because the Dianchohanic host starts at red and goes all the way to violet. Each one is in charge of one of those colors. So if we come from them, if they're our spiritual progenitors, then obviously we're color coordinated, because our astral body receives its energy from the sun. the sun gives all of these rays. So which ray are we looking at? This world is what I'm saying. Is it yellow? Is it green? Are you able to see through all of them, or just partially through some of them? Because it is distorted if you cannot see through all of the colors. If you're looking at the world as green, that's the one view you're going to get, not all of it. If you're looking through the red prism, then it's all red. So we need to be very careful as to what it is we are doing in those realms when that inner capability is with us. So it is stated that self-development we talk about is also natural to each human soul, and it comes to us through the pointing of the way. What does all this literature do? It points the way. It doesn't tell you what to do, but it has an inner sanctity to it. When the inner eye is open, what do you see in the books? It's not just the surface written, but the underlying meaning becomes available. The same with all of the religious books. The Bible, they tell you read between the lines, that's exactly what they're meaning. So this is the master's program. The 19th century effort was brought out through them. Have they gone anywhere? No. They still protect and augment wherever they can all of the true theosophical organizations, not organization as an organization, but the people who are in it, they protect, because it has that umbrella protection over it. What else do? They augment our understanding. Many places a student has read that we're visited during sleep, and that they project these ideas into our mind, and hopefully when we wake up we remember them. Anyway, so they can teach as they themselves were taught, but we have to learn as they had to through self-induced, self-devised effort. And there is the difficulty for us. Self-induced, self-devised effort. No one is going to tell us what to do or how to do it. Everyone has to make this decision for themselves. But there is a very critical aspect to what is being said today. We are normally talking about personality and karma, but this here, what we are talking about, has to come from the individuality, not the personality, because the personality is simply an effect. It's the individuality that's the cause. It's important to understand this. Personality is just for this lifetime. It's the lower mind, our karmic nature, collecting all of the other forces around to make us work on the physical plane. It's necessary to have one. Without it, we cannot exist. But the individuality is the permanent aspect of us that goes from life to life to life. It's the reincarnating ego. And this is the cause. This is just the effect. It's like its reflection on this field of operation. So, what is it that causes this unclarity is what we're trying to bring forth here. The ego is enveloped in the psychical and astral mists which preclude his clear seeing. We see only opticals, but we don't know how to overcome the obstacles. We see them, but we don't know what to do with them. When we look at the lower kingdoms, they know what to do about it. Why? Because they use their instinct. Their instinct is sharp and clear, and they find their food, they make their homes, they mate, they raise their children, and they don't show more than necessity is what they are dealing with. Each animal kingdom does this. The birds do their nesting and so forth, and you know each bird has a different nest. They know how to do it because instinct is so very clear in them. What about us? What happened to ours? Because we had exactly the same clear seeing through our instinctive nature. What happened to us? We lost it. We lost our clear seeing instinctive nature. But the animal kingdom, when they get ill, they know what to do with it. I read somewhere that the goats' vitamin C level goes 20,000 units up when they get ill. So their body responds to whatever is threatening them. Animals go into a corner, they lick themselves, they know what to do about their condition. Why is this not clear in us? Because we have reason. We have become reasoning human beings, and we have lost the instinct. Why have we lost it though? Was it supposed to happen that way? No. We have to go through all the stages as an evolutionary process. It's natural. So humanity had to descend into matter. We have done that. We have come into matter, but we didn't have to get enmeshed into matter, which is what we have done. We have bound ourselves to matter so succinctly, so strongly, that our instinctual nature does not work. When did we actually incur this heavy debt, this heavy karma? Atlantean. We are the Atlanteans. The fifth subrace of the food, of the fifth root, are the Atlanteans. We cannot look backwards and say we didn't do it, because we were part of that civilization and we did do it. So we incurred this debt during that period. Mr. Judge has quite a few articles on it. What is it that we did not do? This student has never read this anywhere else, but I'm putting it out here today. It says, when each human being enters the human kingdom, we take an oath. This I have never read anywhere else. Oath. Each human being takes an oath when entering the human kingdom. To whom are we taking this oath? Well, obviously to our higher selves. We're entering this human kingdom. What is this oath supposed to tell us? That we are going to help our younger brothers in the 3 planes lower than ours. What is that? Well, obviously the lower kingdoms: animal, plant, and mineral. So we have taken an oath to move those kingdoms one step up through our own effort. We're going to go through the material, but our aim was to pull them up, one step up. And it says here, and masters have done this for us because they're our elder brothers and they protect us, because that Guru Parampara chain is a reality. If you perceive it, it makes sense that a teacher has another teacher above it, and that teacher has another teacher above it, and that chain goes heaven to earth, because our progenitors are the Dianchoanic host. So it makes sense that from the highest comes to the lowest to the classroom, because we have teachers in the classrooms, right? So they have stood by their word to uplift humanity. They stand by that word. That's their oath to themselves, because a Buddha can go through or remain behind. Voice of the Silence has an explanation where it says some of the Buddhas are Pratyeka Buddhas because they have no concern for humanity and they just go forward. They join the great light, they have nothing or no concern for humanity or whatever is left behind them. But when you read Sakyamuni's life, which was the last Buddha, what did he do? He sacrificed his life to bring this philosophy into the universe, that of unity, that of Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path. This is similar. It's similar to this, but that's exoteric. But it's in its esoteric essence, it's exactly the same as the wisdom religion. So we did not keep our oath, but the masters have. What's the difference? It says here, if we had done our duty as self-conscious psycho-spiritual being, our clairvoyance would have remained as undimmed by space, time, and matter, which is the case with the masters. All nature, inanimate and animate, below our own level, on the stairway of life everlasting, would have become for us what it is for the masters, their faithful, loyal, willing, and obedient servant and child people. What are we talking about here? Elementals. All these lower kingdoms are made up of elementals. All these mineral kingdom, plant kingdom, animal kingdom has elementals, so do we. But the elementals are not friendly to us because we have abused them. If we had done what we had promised to do, they would have been our friends and they would have uplifted us and enabled us to go forward with ease. Whereas now we have opposing forces. All of us are affected by it. All of us have these forces playing their games with us. And it says that instead of the master being in charge, these are in charge, and the master is in chains. What did we just read? The ego is enveloped in psychical and astral mists which preclude his clear seeing. The elementals do not allow it, precludes it. Well, how do we mitigate it? Well, not an easy stuff. It isn't easy to mitigate it, but it can be done. And how is it done? I have run out of time, but I will mention it. It is stated that those who are internally active, meaning that the inner nature has become known to the individual to some degree and the personality has become aware of it, instead of complaining or fault finding with the eternal justice, which is karma, it says we should recognize the omission and commission through the Atmic light, which is the witness of karma, and own up to ourselves as to what it is that we have done or not done. And with that it says resolution comes to us, which is the spiritual will re-invoked. So then we take another oath to repair the mischiefs done a long time ago, and we commit ourselves to clear seeing which is the life of service, distinguished from the life of self. And I'll just put it right here. Life of service rather than the life of self, which is the personality. So, it says that through this process, we come face to face for the first time with our higher self, and at that time the six are slain and laid at the Master's feet, as described in the Voice of the Silence, which we read this morning. So then, the witness within, the warrior within, assumes the station of that battle. The voice of the Master is always there in the world, and so we look at the world through the eye of the higher, we hear through the higher, and go out and do our service, come home and rest, and we go and provide service. And so we come life after life. The personal life is incidental to the service of the human being. There are many of these individuals in the world, we just don't know who they are. But I have been assured that there are a lot of them around. Some of them are sworn to the Masters, some of them are just charitable, highly noble human beings that are on this path, and they just do their service to humanity. Now we'll open it up for questions.
You talked about individuality versus personality,
Yes.
and essentially allowing a personality to take control, I guess, through the elementals and that process.
Your question is, how do the elementals take charge of us?
Right.
Right. Well, in this just go here. Okay. In this philosophy, there's one mind, right? One mind. But it has two aspects. It has a higher and a lower aspect. Mind. There's one mind. We all have one mind. But it works in two different ways. So, how does it do that? But this is the diagram that is given. This is the lower personality here, quaternary, and this is the higher triad, which is the reincarnating ego, Atman, which is a spirit, Buddhi, which is wisdom or spiritual discernment, and the third one is Manas, which is mind. And it has this zigzag in between. The mind is necessary because Buddhi is too spiritual, being the vehicle of Atman. It cannot deal directly with phenomenal or physical forces. So it is the mind that has a reflection of itself in the lower mind, if I understand it correctly, if this student understands it correctly. And it, in conjunction with Kama, it tends towards down tendencies. Why? Because it's personal. It's selfish. It's concerned about itself. It's just normal place we are at this time. But the higher aspect of it, if it goes towards Buddhimanas, and the other corners are physical body, astral body, Kama we put there, and there is Jiva, or life principle. So they're all there. So if it goes not down, but the mind goes towards higher, towards Buddhi or wisdom discernment, what does it do? It is open to the suggestions, noble suggestions of the higher entity. What are those? Well, we talked about it, the virtues, love and charity. Sorry. Love and charity. What else? Harmony. Beauty. What else? Unity. Where does brotherhood come from? From unity. It understands its base. It understands that it is part of the whole. Whereas this one makes itself sum total. we said this before. Sum total. It assumes the position of the whole. Does not allow any voice of the higher to come in and do anything. So that is how elementals control us, through karmic nature. So if we allow it, what does she tell us? They will convert us into psychics. They will convert us into the dark side, because in each incarnation we become more selfish, more self-centered. We have no concern for anybody else, and eventually, she says, don't go through the declivity. That's her own word. I had to look at it. I didn't know what it meant. Declivity. She says, don't do it. You take the first step down, all the rest will follow, and you're going to find yourself all the way at the bottom. And you have to then make a tremendous effort to rise up again. They tell us, don't go looking for pseudo-gurus. In her time, people wanted to go to India. And they were asking her, should we go to India? She said, no, absolutely not. We're not interested in the exoteric religions of India, which is quite a lot of them. She said they're all based on superstition, and the priests over there don't tell any more truth than they do over here. She said, serve wherever you are according to your capacity. Don't go anywhere. She said, read it, assimilate it, learn it, give it, find your own niche, but don't go over there. So this is how they take a hold of us. All of our nature, every sheath we have, all the way to the Buddhi, is made up of these elementals. She says 2/3 elementals, 1/3 pure spirit that nothing can touch. But we have to get there first. So this is not an easy thing to overcome, according to this, what we have read today. That we have taken an oath, the student wasn't aware of it, that we take an oath when we come into the human kingdom, that we're going to help our brothers, because in the future they will be human too. The lower kingdoms, including every atom. Mr. Judge says that in the future those atoms are going to become human beings. Nothing is to be left out. As I said, this is not an easy philosophy to grapple with, but if we understand it, I think, and consider its reasonableness, then it becomes common sense acceptance of knowledge that is given. But she says you can't have it both ways. You cannot be one and the other at the same time. You have to be one or the other. You can't have it both ways. This, what we discussed today, I think perhaps requires total commitment somewhere along the line. Maybe in someone's life we will make that commitment to carry it out. If not in this one, perhaps in the next one. But it does require commitment to the philosophy. Not as a dogma, not as a belief system, but as a result of internal growth towards understanding what it is saying, and at the same time making it come alive in yourself as principles to live by, and then actually living by it. As I said, it's not such an easy undertaking, but there are a whole lot of us that have undertaken it, and so in the future the same will happen. So that clear seeing eye is the spiritual eye. What gland is she talking about here? What are we activating?
Pineal.
Cranium.
Hmm?
pineal gland.
Correct. She has a very large article in the Secret Doctrine about the pineal gland. And during the Atlantean period, apparently our pineal gland was open. Pineal gland was open, and so we were spiritual entities. And whatever decisions we undertook, and it wasn't nice when you read about what we had done. And we don't, of course, we don't remember it, but we were killing nations and chopping lands off if they didn't suit us, because we had the inner eye open, we had all our spiritual faculties available to us. And what is he talking about here? There's an article about flying machines. It was very interesting. The flying machine didn't have any engine in it. Who is the flying machine? The human being himself, because he could contact the sidereal forces from the sun and actually manipulate the vehicle with its own energy. So we are really we're not little human beings, is what these articles say. That we are great human beings. That we have tremendous powers all stored for future use. But what they do not want us to do is activate these powers until we become humane, devoted to the service of humanity and not money getting for ourselves. Because she says that then it will do tremendous damage to humanity, these powers. So we do have them, but that pineal gland is now where? Pulled inside the inner brain, and it's not active. It's there, it does its job, whatever it is assigned to it, without us knowing it. But when you actually activate it, it becomes a force. But these things can kill as well as give life, so we need to know what it is we are doing, hopefully, before it activates itself. Yeah.
The Atlanteans did not use their own energy force to manipulate the machines and flying objects. They used external energy.
Well, I don't know. However, look at the article and make your own decision.
Interesting.
Because Keely in Philadelphia had discovered that force is in the Secret Doctrine, and HPB was in Philadelphia sitting there and observing. And what do you think she was doing, I wonder?
Mm-hmm.
They did not want it to come out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But if I understand it correctly, the Atlanteans you talk about using external energy. They were able to channel that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And,
That's what I understood.
make that power that plane or whatever.
But not their own.
Also the ships. Well, what's the difference between one's own energy, if one is selfless, and the energy of the universe?
Yeah, it's the same.
What is it you're using?
Yeah, same.
Read the article. Anyway, it's very important to understand what it is we have been given. It's an opportunity to help humanity move forward, but at the same time move the lower kingdoms forward too, which we had taken an oath to do, and we have not done for. We've been in evolution in this path for 1 million years. We have not kept our promises to nature. Nature works under a strict justice. Karma is law, and we're all under its sway, whether we know it or not. Whatever comes to us is under strict justice. Sometimes it looks totally unfair according to our own standard, but when you look at it as causative, what's the cause? Why do I have it? Why is it coming? That's what we have to figure out. It's very tough to do because we don't remember anything. We don't remember our previous lives. I don't know what we were doing then, but there's something mentioned about when Ammonius Saccas was around, that perhaps all the Theosophical students, because of the 1500, 1200 life cycle, were in Alexandria at that time. And that was the center of hubbub of wisdom teachings. So perhaps we need to visit those articles. They might be beneficial.
Quick question. You mentioned dark depths. It seems like a kind of a conflict there. How can a depth also be evil?
Well, how do we start on this journey is what we have to think about it. We all start as students, don't we? We start as students with good intentions and with that intention of doing good to others. I'm sure that none of the Theosophical students have any other idea in their heads when they start on this path. But what happens to us on the way is what we need to think about. People call Theosophy, which is the wisdom of old, under any guise they like. It should have been just what she brought out, so that people could tell the real from the unreal. Because we just talked about it. A lot of people don't have the discrimination to differentiate what is real and what is not. And suppose you go put yourself under some guru that is a black magician. What are you going to turn out to be? Or somebody who has psychic powers, which is what Annie Besant was after apparently during her lifetime. She wanted to have psychic powers. And they tell us don't try to develop those powers. I'm just giving that as an example, nothing else. But it is wrong to go after developing those powers because you don't know who you're contacting. This requires honest living with integrity. How are you going to follow the master's program any other way? They only base it on love, understanding, and charity. That's the first virtue in the voice of the silence, Dana. Love and charity is the first rule, because eventually the opposite side of it activates when your pineal gland is activated. And what does it become? Compassion for the universe, for all of it. So the lower aspect has to be cultivated, but at the same time the higher activates itself. So all these things are in there. So we as students start with the best of intentions, but somewhere along the way we can go wrong. That's when we fall, and that's when we become candidates for the other side to employ. And please don't ask me, because I don't understand it. I don't understand why the dark side exists, but because our world is a world of opposites, perhaps that's why it exists. Because how would we contrast the good side without the other bad side? And just those don't mean really anything. But why would the black adepts be against humanity moving forward, for instance? This student doesn't understand it. Why would that force be in the world? Why would they not want humanity to become emancipated from substance so that they can realize their own spiritual natures? I don't understand it, so don't ask me those questions, please. Because I have no idea why they exist, but because it's said, because this is an opposing forces field of operation, perhaps that is why they are there. But they did not start, I assure you, in that direction. They were all with the good intention of doing good to humanity, and somewhere along the way they fell. What else is applicable to us? We can also fall. So, yeah, need to be there.
Student of us, with us, a few years ago, when he left his body, said God needs the devil. You're talking about contrast.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's why the dark side is there. I think
Because-
it's implying that.
Because the Christian religion would not exist without one. That's why it will fall to pieces. There is no such concept, but yeah. Anyway, thank you very much.